This episode is brought to you by Audi. The road is calling. Embrace the thrill of the drive with the all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron. Featuring effortless power, serious acceleration, and advanced Audi tech. It's not just a new EV. It's a new way to experience driving. The all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron is here. The next chapter of Audi starts now.
I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does, without me lifting a finger. So I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
Hey, Fidelity. What's it cost to invest with the Fidelity app?
Start with as little as $1 with no account fees or trade commissions on U.S. stocks and ETFs.
That's music to my ears.
I can only talk.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Zero account fees apply to retail brokerage accounts only. Sell order assessment fee not included. A limited number of ETFs are subject to a transaction-based service fee of $100. See full list at fidelity.com/commissions. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE, SIPC.
You're listening to the Animation Addicts Podcast, episode 307, Once Upon a Studio. It's about the people.
Welcome to the Animation Addicts Podcast with the Rotoscopers, the #1 place to get your animation fix with animation addicts just like you. Each episode, we dive into the wonderful world of animation featuring Disney, DreamWorks, Pixar, and everything in between. From hilarious discussions and movie reviews to interviews with industry insiders, this show's mission is to brighten your day through our love of animation. So hop on your nerdy couch, grab some snacks, and get ready to hang out with your animation besties because it's time to dive into today's episode.
Hey there, Animation Addicts. I'm Morgan Stradling.
And I'm Chelsea Robson.
Today, we are back. I'm still on my sentimental note from our Sherman Brothers episode. I have been on a Sherman Brothers high since we did that, and I have watched The Happiest Millionaire since then.
Aww.
Gone back and said, okay, I need to watch some of these. Because remember, we listened to the Sherman Brothers songbook. And
Yes.
some of those, I was like, oh my gosh, some of these movies, some I haven't seen, some I have. And I had a best friend who loved The Happiest Millionaire, and I had seen it, but it'd been a very long time. So I decided to watch it, and it was so cute.
I actually don't think I've ever seen it.
Oh, I would recommend it. It's it's kind of like Mary Poppins, but set in the real world. There's not magic or anything, but because it's the Sherman Brothers, it just has this, it's set like a play, really.
Yeah.
It feels like a play that was adapted because it was. And I really wish that they would go back and redo this play not for modern audiences, but just bring it back. You know how like, oh, Les Mis is back, or Little Shop of Horrors. That's been 20 years, and so we're bringing it back. You know what I mean? I wish this would be one because it's just so fun. It's so classic. It has, the romantic love story and the dancing and Sherman Brothers songs. So I'd highly, highly recommend it if you have not checked it out.
I want to do that one and Summer Magic. Both of those are two that I have never seen these.
I've never seen In Search of the Castaways, but I'm very familiar with all those songs from those old CDs. So I definitely will be adding that to my list. So with that, we are weaving in, we're not 100% going away from the Sherman Brothers quite yet. We couldn't let them go. And Jeremiah had a great suggestion, although he didn't explicitly suggest it.
He didn't suggest it. He
scolded us. Yes, exactly. And I thought, you know what? He is right. So I decided that we need to give the short Once Upon a Studio its due. And so that's what this episode is going to be about. This will be a different episode. It's an episode about a short. We have done these before previously. This is a very short. There's lots to talk about because of the place the studio is in, all the history, everyone that was involved with this. There is Richard Sherman is in this, which we will talk about. And so I'm excited to talk about it.
I'm excited as well.
And at the very end, we will be having voicemails featuring one of our favorite people. So
stick around.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Uh-oh. The last cookie.
You can get a new box of cookies in as fast as an hour with Walmart Express Delivery.
Are you my guilty self-conscience?
No, I'm the voice offering you promo code EXPRESS for free delivery on your first order.
Hey, who ate my cookies?
You mean, these cookies?
Order now. Welcome to your Walmart. Promotion valid for first express delivery order. $50 minimum subject to availability. Restrictions apply.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Fred Warner, linebacker for the San Francisco 49ers. Abercrombie has the new suits you need, plus all the collared shirts to go with them. The Abercrombie & Fitch Collins suit is the only suit you'll ever need for any occasion. Available in slim, classic, and athletic. Pair with a collared classic. Go with a soft, easy-to-wear sweater polo or a comfortable long-sleeve shirt. With so many different fits and fabrics, you can make a look that's completely your own. Add the Abercrombie & Fitch Collins suit and new collared shirts to every occasion this season. Shop online or in store.
All right, we are going to be doing Once Upon a Studio. Let's talk about it. So it was directed by Dan Abraham and Trent Corey. Obviously, the production studio was Walt Disney Animation Studios. It was released October 15th, 2023. It premiered on The Wonderful World of Disney on ABC as one of their special features that they occasionally do. Shocking in 2023 that they went that route. It's 9-minute runtime. That includes runtime always includes the credits, but it's really about 7. So I looked at the people who directed it, Dan Abraham and Trent Corey, and I said, "Who are you guys? I don't know you." And so I looked them up, and they've been in the studio the past 10, 15 years, so it seems around 2010-ish is when they started working, for example, Dan Abraham, he's done quite a bit in animation. He started as an assistant animator in Space Jam, at least that's the earliest that I can find him, did Quest for Camelot, King and I, then he eventually started working as a story artist for the Tinkerbell films, then went into storyboard. Again, he worked on these Tinkerbell films for quite a long time, and then went to Frozen 2, Encanto, and Wish. But then in the meantime, he did direct some other things for Disney while he was there, some shorts, notably Once Upon a Snowman, Baymax, the TV series. He did one episode of that, and then Once Upon a Studio. So he's kind of been on the, not necessarily like the features for the most part of his career. He's kind of been doing like the Disney Toon Studio stuff, and then worked his way up, and now he's done this, which is pretty exciting. So then if we look at Trent Corey, Trent appears to be younger. I can't find anything for him earlier than, the 2010s. He was an animator on the Smurfs, then went to Frozen, Big Hero 6, Zootopia, then, continued to be in the studio for all of their films. Basically since then, Ralph Breaks the Internet, Frozen 2, Raya the Last Dragon. He was an animator on Once Upon a Studio, which is interesting because he was the director. So they were doing lots of multitasking here. He has directed some shorts. He was also Once Upon a Snowman. So he co-directed that with Dan. So they worked together on that. Zootopia Plus, he did 6 episodes of that, and a writer on some other things. So, I just thought it was interesting because this short film is all about the legacy. And it's hard. I guess I want to lead off with this because I want to talk about the film on its merits and at face value, right?
Uh-huh.
But I have all this history and baggage with Disney, especially where it is now, and how we know from Film Threats, the D-Files, and other exposés that have come out, how they really have this animosity towards not only Walt, but the people who built the studio and the legacy and the traditional animators. And so it felt sad. The reason why I initially rebelled against this film and didn't see it is because I was rebelling against Disney and the fact that they have ignored their legacy and that those which helped to make this great.
It felt a little disingenuous.
And knowing that, it's like, oh, hey, we're going to do this big love letter to Walt Disney Animation Studios. We're bringing it all the 2D. It's going to be great. And I'm like, but this is fake. This is fake to me,
Yeah.
So I want to get this out because then I really want to talk about it. But what are your thoughts?
That is where we are coming from. Like, without talking about the short itself, just like it's hard to look at this, but also it just seems, like I said, just disingenuous, but also a little hypocritical. Like it's just kind of like, okay, you are making this film that is the love letter to Walt, but at the same time, all of your actions behind the scenes are like you're really have a lot of
even
animosity.
publicly too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know how Walt himself has been deemed for certain things that he has done or certain works that he's put out as, passé. Problematic, right? And that's frustrating because how can you write this thing? And it's like the big sweeping, swelling moment in the short is when they look at Walt, and the feed the birds. It's like, oh, the motions.
Yeah.
But you're not showing that as a company. So that was what's frustrating to me.
I feel like the directors themselves are probably not on that same train.
I agree.
Emotionally, but it is also shown as different as you go through. You realize that there are very few close-ups of any of the 2D characters. And they're always in the background, even like the close-up they did of Tinkerbell is just like, she looks weird. It's like,
well, that's the problem. We've talked about this is with 2D animation is that you cannot hide the flaws. You cannot draw your way out of it.
Take over somebody else's model.
Yeah, you can't. You can't just pick up unless you have the skills. And so many of these characters are really connected with their artist and the 9 old men, and they had their own personality. And yes, they had, their assistant animators and the in-betweeners, but it really is like the person. And so I did notice on a lot of the some of the characters were really good and some just felt off. And that felt really sad to me because it felt like I was watching a direct to VHS film, where it's like, oh, we don't care that it's not entirely on model, Belle's Christmas, but it's good enough, right? It's going to sell some copies. And it was like, no, on this, you needed to get it right. And so let's talk about the animator. So one thing they did do right is that they had Eric Goldberg, who is one of the last remaining remnants of 2D animation at the studio. He served as the head of hand-drawn animation, and Andrew Feliciano was the head of computer animation. And that makes sense because Eric is the guy who's done so much for the studio, and he's, notably, I have his book over here. It's the Animators Gallery, and he signed it for me. And he drew a picture of Genie. He said, "What do you want?" And I was like, "Well, you've done so many characters, but like, it's got to be the Genie, right?" And so he's animated the Genie and very known for that. And he was director for Pocahontas, and he's just such a jolly, great guy. So I really appreciated that they had him. Because you need someone who knows what they're doing, knows the legacy, knows the characters, who's been there a long time to really hone these in. And with that, they did have current Disney animators. They had, for at least 2D, they had Mark Henn, Randy Haycock, Andy Cooperschmidt, Bert Klein. And then they had to bring in, which this is smart. This is what you got to do. I mean, we're in a different place than we were in the 90s. Obviously, people have gone to different studios, but they brought in former Disney animators. These names are just like classics. James Baxter, Ruben Aquino, Tony Bancroft, Nick Raniere, Will Finn. And they went and they did their characters. And their characters were great. Were really, really good. Yeah. But there were characters, for example, all of Glenn Keane's characters, like Pocahontas and Belle. Or no, she didn't do Belle. I think no, he didn't do Belle. He did Beast.
But Belle was a little off.
Andreas Deja for some of these characters, I just felt like, wow. I know they have their own studios and they're working on, they probably didn't have the time to carve out a month or whatever to do this, even though it was so short, some of these little snippets.
Yeah.
They needed, for your like headline Disney flagship princesses, they needed to get those right. And those ones felt so off. That was one of my issues initially with this. It's like, they got this like the crappy animation. And I feel so bad because they got really great people. Mark Henn, who, did Tiana, and Tiana's scenes looked great. But you're only as good as your weakest link, right? And that's where I felt this really fell down. And it's not just a background character here or there. It was Gaston, and that's where you needed Andreas Deja to, his face just looked off. And it was like it wasn't just a headshot. I mean, he was looking in the mirror, and it was more of a half body shot, but it was off, and it felt off. And I really felt that they needed to reach out. Who knows? Maybe they did. I'm sure they did.
Yeah.
But it struggled because they didn't have that. And all of the CG animation, fine, totally normal. Couldn't have told you anything wrong with that. And that's just the nature of the traditional animation. But that's where it really struggles for me, especially some of the older characters. You know, those people aren't around anymore.
Oh, right.
Like you said, Tinkerbell. But okay. So that was my thing. That was my thing. It's just, here's this love letter to hand-drawn animation, and you're not getting it right.
Yeah, and I think as far as like, this is the Animation Addicts podcast, and so I think that we have a little bit of room to be upset that the animation was not quite right.
Right.
I mean, not that like we could do anything better, but that's not the point. Like, the point is we really love and respect the as much of that craft that can be maintained, we would like it to be. So that's, I guess, where our big beef comes in. And now, that being said, we can actually go ahead and do a proper review of this short, because I think that there were other things that really gave it more life. And as Jeremiah said in his voicemail, that it was better than what we would give it credit for. So that is a couple of the things. Now, I will say there's a couple more. I want to get all of my negative Nancy things out first.
Yes.
And then we'll move on to the good things.
Okay.
So, like, the other thing was, like, they keep trying to throw Raya in there all the time. And I'm just like, she's not going to be a thing.
I just saw her once.
Well, Raya was in there. And then you also had the dragon. And it was like,
I feel like that was fresh and new, and they had people who knew how to animate that. So
right. It's like, we still have this in the can. Like, just throw it in there. But I guess it was because their characters were so prominent within it, like, as far as like right up front, right in, like, they're doing a proper face, full face shot. And then it's like you get an Aladdin shot that's like in the background, kind of like, okay, but there he goes. And it's like, wow, okay. And so there were those little moments that I'm just like, come on. However, let's jump into like the audio. Let's say I was very impressed with a lot of the audio that they were able to put in this. For example, I'm wondering what kind of hoops they had to jump through in order to put that outtake from Robin Williams in there.
I read that they did work with the estate. You know, they famously have so many outtakes from the Aladdin recordings that never got used, and that felt spot on. It was Robin Williams. It was no question. It was Robin Williams. It wasn't someone pretending. It was him, and so they did work with the estate to use that. And so that's good.
Yeah. And there was the moment Flower from Bambi came out, I was like, oh wow, that's the real recording, you know. And
you can tell.
Yes.
You know. Yeah.
Yes. And there's a lot of these little moments in there. So you had that. I was very much impressed that they took the straight up recording from Flower. Billy Joel as Dodger in there, I thought, like, okay, that's cool. The Stromboli clip too, like, there's a lot of these characters that I was like, okay.
I did appreciate the breadth of characters that they used. It wasn't just like the main star of the show necessarily. Yeah. Sometimes they had these ancillary characters or these secondary ones. So the Stromboli one, that's one that stood out to me as well. It's like, wow, okay, I like what they did here. And I liked Ichabod Crane was there, and they used him in a funny moment.
Yeah. And of course you have the make it pink, make it blue moments.
That was funny.
I was like, I like it.
How could you?
I like it. And then Sterling Holloway as the Cheshire Cat. That was good. Like, so there's I'm looking at a list from the Wikipedia article, and they have a whole list of the archival recordings. And I was just like, man, I'm so glad that they were able to put those things in there, because it was that the sound really does make a difference. And for example, if you go back and you listen to like the very beginnings of the Rotoscopers Animation Addicts podcast, you'll realize that our audio quality was pretty crappy, and it really does make a difference when you go back and you have like good sound, not just good sound, but it's like the correct sound, the sound that you remember. I've mentioned in one of the past episodes, I can't remember which one it was, but how I I noticed different sound effects that I was like, oh, it was in the Winnie the Pooh. I was like, those are specific sound effects from this other movie I know. And then this one is definitely from this movie, or at least was repeated later in this movie. And so it's interesting when you hear those, like the Goofy fall, you know?
Yeah. Yes.
Like it's like 3, 2, 1, here it comes. Like you gotta bring that in. So I was very glad that they, even within the audio, were able to go back and find those things. I mean, granted, it's a lot easier to hide a little cut here and there as far as like to blend the different sounds, because you're not dealing with the visual side. So anyway, but I was just really glad that they actually went out of their way to find those, because it takes a long time to do that, and to be like, okay, I want this sound, I want this talking, or I want this quote, I want this thing to happen, and I'm going to build a sequence around this one little thing that I can bring back out of the archive, which I'm like, that just takes time and energy and effort, and I'm glad you did it. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, I did feel there were a few, I couldn't tell you at this moment, who were off. For example, you know, they didn't bring, for Iago, they didn't bring back Gilbert Gottfried, because apparently he's persona non grata now, you know, because
rude,
whatever. And so they brought someone else back, and he's a professional voice actor. Fine, but I felt like I noticed things like that.
Yeah.
When you're going for 100% fidelity in things, meaning it has to be as close to the original as possible, and then when you don't, they really, really stand out. And so I did feel there were certain voices that I was like, eh? And maybe this is just the animation addict in me.
Right.
But as with the animation, the hand-drawn, I noticed that with some of the voices. And obviously you have to do what you have to do. You're not going to be able to have, you know, some of these classic, you know, for example, the Mad Hatter was done by Alan Tudyk, who was not the original voice in the original, you know, but some just felt off. That's okay.
Yeah. I feel like Alan did a good job with him, though. Like,
yeah, well,
I was like, I mean, of your impressions, you do a good job with that one.
I do commend them for bringing, if you look on the Wikipedia page, they brought back so many people, you know, Kristen Bell, Robbie Benson, who did Beast, Jodie Benson, who did Ariel, Bill Farmer, you know, obviously he's basically on payroll, Bill Farmer as Goofy and Pluto, you know, right. Josh Gad, Jennifer Goodwin, Paige O'Hara as Belle, Mandy Moore as Rapunzel. I mean, they really, I think their number one thing is we're asking the people, and we're going to try to get them. Yeah. If not, then we're going to, you know, Judy Kuhn, Pocahontas, Dwayne Johnson, Maui, Jeremy Irons as Scar, James Wood as Hades. Yeah, it's perfect, and it works, and it's it made it what it was, which overall was good, I will say. Like, as we're talking on face value, overall it's good.
Yeah, and if you're one of these actors, it's like, why not take a
I want to know what's the payment? Like, what's the payment for that? Yeah, exactly. Like, how much do you get paid?
Literally
to do your one line.
Yeah, I don't know. And well, does it say what the budget on this was?
No, I don't think they released the shorts budgets.
I would say it's probably like $30 million.
30? Come on, girl.
Based on what
knowing Disney
puts out now. $280 million for this.
Gosh. You know, this probably was over $1 million, to be honest. But
I'm sure. Yeah.
I love some of these. Just, you know, Joanna eating the eggs.
Yeah, Joanna.
You know, eating the mice was funny. The puppies watching Diablo or whatever his name is. You know, from Night on Bald Mountain. The Wind in the Willows characters as they're walking by.
Yeah,
Chernabog, that's his name. Scrooge McDuck, I mean, he's always a classic. I felt the Robin Hood characters were a little off. That Robin Hood, when he talked, I was like, wait.
Yeah, his voice was definitely off. Having Ursula in there was good.
And her voice, because her voice actress has died.
Right.
Again, I just don't want to be this like Debbie Downer, but I just, you know, I'm just pointing out what I'm pointing out.
We're a stickler for as much as we can.
There's just so many great characters that they put in this. This was really fun. I had a good time. So let's talk about really the main moments. So it starts out with Mickey and Minnie, and they're on the wall, and there's like, it's from one of their famous shorts. They pop out. Hey guys, we want to take the group photo. It's a cute idea. It's a cute little, it's the 100th anniversary. And well, even before that, actually, they have the intern and Bernie Mattinson, who is the longest employee at Disney, the longest employed person at Disney company in general, not just the animation studio, just
which is amazing.
70 years.
Yeah.
I love his story. So on Disney Plus, if you don't know, you can go to the extras section. And if there are extras available, you know, they'll put them on there, which is kind of cool because you're thinking like, oh, the days of the bonus features are gone. I mean, really, they've done a good job of putting those there if they choose to. And there are 2 little shorts, one about Bernie Mattinson and the other one's about Richard Sherman. And the Bernie Mattinson's just really cute because he just wanted to work at the studio. This was in the 50s. And he just showed up and got a job at the mail boy, and his mom would drop him off. So tender. I just loved it.
Yes. I mean, his story was so sweet. And if you look at that video as I watched it, the things that stuck out to me were just like his overall joy of being there and being part of the process. And him saying, how long are you going to stay? I mean, I guess until it stops being fun, you know. It's just like, and he's at that point, he gets a placard on the wall now that he's one of those legends. And it's just like, it's so sweet. It would be an amazing thing to create a company or to create a business at all that is able to treat people in a way that they want to be there for 70 years. And like, if you just look at it in that perspective, like it's quite the achievement over the years. And I mean, it also is quite the achievement for him to have stuck it through so many of the changes that happened.
Oh my gosh, especially over the last 20 years. I mean, he was 87 when he died. He died February 27, 2023. And this came out, you know, about 6 to 8 months later. Aww. And he was apparently still, for the most part, at the studio. And I mean, this guy could have retired in his 60s. He could have retired 20 years earlier, you know, in 2005, when there was a big change happening right before the Iger years. But he chose not to, and he chose to stay. And just, it was just awesome. I mean, people say like, oh, I can't wait for retirement. But like having something to do in your life that gives you purpose is really one of the keys to longevity. I mean, they've studied this. And so people think like, oh, I'm going to retire. I'm just going to like kick back on the beach and play golf. But then they find that there's no meaning and purpose. And so I think he really did find purpose working at Walt Disney Studios. And he was this last remnant, you know, one of the few people left who really remembered Walt, worked with Walt, especially in the animation studio. He was one of the last, not just, there's definitely the stragglers from the 2D era.
Yes.
Who didn't have any connection with Walt. But he really seemed to be one of the only who was the tie to the Walt era, the former era, and the modern era. And now that he's gone, I mean, that was more sad of anything to me. Watching this was just seeing that wow, it's really been severed.
Yeah, but his story is so sweet. I mean, he started out in the mailroom, as we said, and then just like the whole work your way up and just, you know, to the director point, to all the moments. And I was just like, that's so great.
It's cute.
It's so cute. And the other special that they had with it was for Richard Sherman.
Yes.
And that one, I honestly, after we just did the Richard Sherman episode as well, like both of these ties to the beginning of the Walt Disney era, having passed away within the very short period of time compared to us right now, it is so sad. Oh, it is a complete cut in those ties. But I thought it was very commendable and very sweet and just heartwarming that the directors went out of their way to like make his experience doing that as joyful as it was. And they were like, and we're doing it on a Friday afternoon because that's when he used to come in and play for Walt all the time. And it was just like knowing that and going out of your way to learn those details and then know them enough to be able to show them and, hey, this is what we're doing. And it's just like, and especially for somebody like Richard, who is much more of a sentimental, like I'm sure that meant so much to him. And it was very heartwarming for me to see that as well.
Yeah, they went in Walt's office on the exact piano. They didn't record in some studio piano that was probably much higher quality. And I love the joke that he said. It was like, it's the same piano. It's just in tune this time. It never.
That's new.
That's new. Yeah, you better believe they got a professional tuner to get in there. And and that person is like, whoa. I mean, hopefully that person understood the significance of the piano they were tuning. I'm sure. I mean, hello, you're in the, hey, okay, my gig is at the Walt Disney Animation Building in Disney's office. Okay. I mean, wow, what an honor for that person. I mean, here I am talking about the piano tuner, but
we have a piano tuner in common though. So it's like,
yes. Yeah, and I thought that was great. And you know what's funny is I liked the short. I thought it was really cute. The best moments is when they were focusing on the people. So when they have the moment with Walt and Walt Disney, thanks, whatever he says. Like that made me kind of like tear up a little bit in my heart.
Yeah, me too.
But then watching the extras, like I got more emotional over those. And it's just really interesting to me. Like the characters are special and really important. But I have this deep connection, not knowing these people, but with the people involved. And I think that really is the point, and that's what makes me so sad, I think, about all this is how the people who've been so important for the majority, I mean, they have a few figureheads that they're just ornamental in a way, and that they've been pushed aside. Like the people don't matter anymore at Walt Disney Animation Studio. It's just whoever can fit these boxes.
Yeah.
And that's not just Disney. I feel like that's a lot more corporate thing.
That's a societal corporate vibe that's been happening all over.
Yeah. People working 70 years for a company is just completely unheard of. Someone working 5 years for a company before switching is also not common, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not 5, 10.
I mean, 12 years would be like, whoa, you've been here a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. People are now jumping because they can get a better compensation package and they can use the jump to negotiate a higher wage. And then they jump here. And there's just the loyalty to the studio. But the studio or the companies don't have loyalty to them. So what do you expect?
They don't have loyalty. And there's both sides have lacking in loyalty, but also both sides are lacking in a vision of what a partnership would be with the employer versus with the employee of like the thing that they're creating. So like before, that picture right there, like it was a screenshot Morgan's like going through of the Little Mermaid and Ariel, just like, whoa,
Ariel looks terrible. They needed Glen Keane. They needed her for Ariel and they needed her for Pocahontas. It's I'm telling you, if you're flagship princesses, you needed to get them right.
That was bad.
I'm sorry, whoever worked on it. I'm really sorry. You did your best. She looks fine. She just doesn't. It's the uncanny valley of Ariel. She doesn't quite look like her.
It looks like one of the in-between moments. That's like, that was definitely not meant to be the moment you remember the keyframe. Snow
White was really off to me.
She was really off. I was like, oh, you're talking? Why? Stop that. Like, it's her, like her singing or whistling or whatever she's doing. It's like, you don't look like that in the movie. Like, you're...
No, her face never. There's this particular screenshot I'm looking at where she's singing the very beginning. I think it's When You Wish Upon a Star, and no, her face doesn't look like that. What happened here? And I'm sure Eric felt the same way. So anyway, and then they end in this big moment, of them singing and take this group photo, and they use Fix It Felix's magic hammer to fix the camera because of course Goofy messes everything up, and that's great,
that part,
and I loved the part actually of Quasimodo on top of, he was having his own moment right there and singing it, and that was great.
No, there were a lot of moments that I was like, that's nice. I like that you were there.
So overall, I know I've been really harsh and critical on this just because I felt like this was a moment you had to get right. And it was to celebrate 100 year. I mean, Disney really had these high hopes for this 100th year celebration.
Right.
They did it at the parks.
I mean, if you're going to celebrate anything, like 100 years is a pretty big milestone.
They had this big 100th anniversary movie. They had this short for it, and it really fell short. It was very lackluster. No one was really excited about it. And I think because people at this point had been disappointed by Disney in a lot of things, so people didn't turn up for Disney in their big moment, unfortunately. But this was released on TV, ABC, which I'd rather have that than going straight to Disney Plus. It's now on Disney Plus, but I thought, this, if you were going to make this all about the 100th anniversary, this should have played before Wish, and then you should have left all the stupid Easter eggs out of Wish, and just let Wish be a good movie. Not this, like, we're trying to force fit a square peg into a round hole sort of thing. It's like, we gotta have all these Easter eggs, it's gotta be an homage. Just like, no, your homage should be, we're making a fabulous movie that's so good, that's going to knock the socks off everyone.
Yes.
But they didn't. So this did eventually, in some markets, this did play in front of Wish. So, yeah, I feel like it would have, not that it would have got a huge audience because hardly anyone saw that movie, but oh well.
Right, yeah. Well, yeah, so all in all, I give this short, as shorts go, I'd say like 3.5 stars out of 5. And I think that it, on its own, without having any backstory or back in, like, with, if you're not me, or like the animation addict side, like saying, okay, I see what you're trying, what your problems are, but you can sit down. How did the actual short go? I thought the short, it was a very touching, it had a lot of really great moments, and the story arc of it was really well played, well put together. And so all in all, I will say that I liked the short. It is in a I like it category with an asterisk, but we've gone through my asterisks, and so we can just leave it at I liked it.
I'm going to give it 3.5 as well. I feel like if it weren't me, it would be higher. It'd probably be a 4. Yeah. But yeah, nothing more than that. It was good. I really appreciated the work that they did try to put into this. Thank you, Eric Goldberg, Mark Henn, and everyone who worked on this. I appreciate the directors, that they really tried to get it right, and that they brought in the right people, and they really did their best with what they have. This feels like we did our best with what we had moment, and it was good.
Here's my question is, if what our problems were, if they had gotten as many and all of the main artists back, and they hadn't had, and we didn't know of any of the, struggling situations in the studio itself, would we have liked this short on its, like, would this have been a 5-star?
Not a 5-star, but it would be in the 4s for sure.
Even like, so all of the things are what we would want out of it.
It's pretty, there's not a ton of depth to it for me to give it a 5-star.
Yeah.
Even if they got the animation right, every single voice right, it's still awesome, everything they were able to do, but it's just like member berries. Like, remember this guy, it's just popcorn. It's just a fun popcorn short.
Awesome. Like it. Yeah.
All right. Let us know your thoughts. We'd love to get your voicemails because we like to hear your thoughts. And speaking of voicemails, we have a few voicemails from one of our favorite people. So when Jeremiah sent these, I listened to the first one and I didn't have a chance to listen to the second and third one. And I sent him an email. I said, hey, do you want these all in the same episode or do you want them in separate ones? And I'm sure he thought, what on earth are you talking about? They are 3 parts to one long voicemail. So, obviously, we will be playing all 3.
Jeremiah sent a voicemail.
So let's take it away.
Hello, Rotoscopers. Morgan, Chelsea, how are ya?
Great.
It's Jeremiah calling to defend Pooh's honor. And it has been tarnished. Pooh's honor has. By your review of the 2011 Winnie the Pooh.
Ooh.
So,
tell me more.
To quote North in Rise of the Guardians, now we get down to texts of breasts. I love this film. I love that they literally give Pooh's tummy a song. I love that Pooh accidentally sends his best friend Piglet hurtling into a beehive. I love that Rabbit obliviously hits Pooh over the head as he yells, "Oh, for crying out loud, Piglet!" What a movie. What a Winnie the Pooh film. I feel that even though you discussed the jokes in this film and laughed at them, you never head-on said that this film is a comedy. And as our friend, the film critic Rachel Regner, says, a comedy, has succeeded if it is funny and makes you laugh. And this film makes you laugh. All right, time for part 2.
Okay, part 2.
Hello, Rotoscopers. Are you comfy? Do you have some tea? Okay, let's go! The pit scene. Ignoring the pit scene is like ignoring Yzma and Kronk in The Emperor's New Groove, because it really is that good. And you briefly mentioned it when you mentioned Owl flying out of the pit and giving a speech to Piglet and how
The pit
funny
scene
that
is
was.
great, yes.
Yeah.
But that's it. And this scene is so good, it deserves to be discussed. It still makes its rounds on social media over a decade later, and people still leave happy comments and leave thousands of likes because this scene just brings people joy. And why not? I mean, it has Rue playing around with the letters, it has the puns with not and not. It's so funny. And it has such great pacing. I love it. Then you have the climax. I feel this film gets Pooh. And part of that is that they don't feel the need to work up to a big, epic grand finale. I enjoy the Tigger movie, especially the Sherman Brothers music. But it does feel the need to have an avalanche and Tigger and Rue hurtling to their apparent deaths? Okay. This movie is all about simplicity, which is as it should be. And get ready for part 3.
Ho, ho, ho. Here is part 3.
Hello, Rotoscopers. It's Jeremiah. Again, this film gets Pooh. By that I mean it understands who Pooh is, what his world should be like, and that friendship and kindness can help make everyone happier. We know this to be true from so many studies. Well, okay, there's a replication crisis in psychology, especially. But in any case, we know this to be true from a few studies and anecdotally, that friendship and kindness can help make people happy. This is especially beautifully illustrated by the ending of this film, when Pooh's want and need are directly opposed to each other. Pooh wants honey, owl's honey, especially now, and he needs to bring Eeyore his tail. Sure, Pooh could just have a small smackerel, I guess. That wouldn't have hurt anybody, but in any case, Pooh, who overcomes his desire for honey, and puts it off till later to bring Eeyore his tail. Because he is a good friend, and that is the central message of this film, as it should be. And I feel that it isn't shown quite so well in any other Winnie the Pooh film. That's all, Rotoscopers. Thank you so much for what you do. I hope you're well. Goodbye.
Holy cow.
Thank you, Jeremiah. That was quite the Pooh review.
We should have brought him onto our episode. If only I would have known that Jeremiah was this Pooh super fan and had so much to say about the 2011 one. He is so right about the pit scene. The pit scene is so good, so funny. He mentioned all the parts that are great about it, especially with Owl not, they're flying out and they don't get it. Oh, it's really, really funny. And I have talked about that scene with my kids multiple times. It's just really interesting that in our discussion of the episode, that one did not come up. Might have been a time thing. I don't know. But I appreciate this voicemail because he mentions points that we may have missed in our review for one reason or another and really gives it its fair shake.
Yeah. A lot of times when we do reviews, it's like something happens and we're like, oh, we got to cut it short. And especially since this is like at the end, I think that might have been why, at the end of the movie, so there could have been other extenuating circumstances as to why we only tapped on it slightly. But thank you, Jeremiah, for really exposing our just the not exposing us, but just like helping us be able to really dig deep into the moments that really matter. So thank you.
And also, we had an issue with our Google Voice. So if you sent us over the past few weeks messages to our Google Voice, I accidentally deleted them all. This is my bad. So we had some people who were talking about the best of the rest, and I want you to send those again. So please send it again. I am so sorry because I don't have the file. Please forgive me.
Yeah, there's one from what it said. What Google Voice said your name was Jessica. I can read that because I've got the written transcript from it. So she said, "This is Jessica with my 2 cents on the best of the rest part 1. I've loaded one of the previous voicemails that I am a millennial and in a Gen Z body. So I have some insight regarding the subject of 90s animated songs. I've grown up with 4 of the films addressed in the episode Swan Princess as a child, Anastasia and Thumbelina as a teenager, and Prince of Egypt as an adult. Here is my list thus far introducing songs. And number 3, this is my idea song because I haven't seen either of the films listed, and 3, Playing with the Boys. I know you say how it was the weak one of the film. It still works because I thought the visuals made it intimidating, some of the Egyptian gods. I would also like to share a fun fact about myself regarding the R&B remixes for part 2, specifically Journey to the Past by Aaliyah. I have a personal history with the late singer because my mom listened to her music as a teenager, and my middle name was almost Aaliyah for when I was born shortly before her passing. In fact, her remix introduced me to the film in the first place. Due to that reason alone, I would put Journey to the Past as my number 1 for the category. But when you believe Mariah Carey and Whitney Houston is a strong contender. P.S. You have already done an episode of the Pixar songs. Yes, thank you.
Yes, this is the voicemail that once I got it, I read through it. I listened to it, read through it, and I sent it over to Chelsea. Then, was really stupid and deleted it because I thought we had talked about it. Turns out we didn't. So thank you so much for the voicemail. Now it's been read. But when you said that, I was like, yes, of course. Of course we've done the Pixar ones. We did this. It was just such a long time ago. So thank you, everybody. Thanks for letting us know. We will not be doing a future Pixar episode, which means I do not have homework on my plate. Hooray!
Hooray!
All right. Like we said before, be sure to send us voicemails so you can be on the show. Go to rotoscopers.com/voicemails or give us a call at 406-646-6575. As Jeremiah noted, there is a 1.5-minute limit. So if you do want to send multiple, we like it to be under 1.5 minutes, although I feel Jeremiah's was very, very justified. So please send us your voicemails. I promise, I will not delete them anymore.
I mean, you can also record us on your phone and send the actual recording to contact@rotoscopers.com. That works as well. Like, there's so many ways to tell us what you think. So
we want to hear from you.
Let us know. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode as we discussed the Once Upon a Time studio short from Disney Animation. And I think we covered our bases on this one. We spent a lot of time talking about it. So I think I'm happy with the episode today.
All right, that's all we have for today. Until next time, we are the Rotoscopers.
So just as a side thing, I have gone shopping. In the South, it's very, very, very humid. And I've decided to switch over from a pant look to a dress look every day. And it's so much more comfortable.
Oh,
so
awesome.
I went and bought a bunch of new ones. I like this one. I'm like, ooh, it's
cute.
So
Yes.
So anyway,
I like it.
I just thought I would do a quick little shout out to fashion show. Yay. But honestly, it's like there's all these videos or whatever, and it's like, oh, these women just wear dresses all the time. Like there's like some trad wife or whatever. I'm like, you have not discovered the beauty and the like amazingness that are dresses in hot weather. It's amazing. So anyway.
My baby has woken up because he's right here. Let me see if I can move him real quick.
Okay.
But he's up, so I don't know. All right.
All around the cathedral, the saints and apostles look down as she sends her wares.
Okay, he is up, and I don't think he's going to be going back to sleep.
Okay.
So we
can just finish this one.
Okay, let's just finish this one, and we can figure. I'm going to try to keep him in here. He stole my I voted sticker. He was really interested in that, so he has that right now. Okay, let me shut the door real quick. Okay, I'll do it real quick. You're listening to the Animation Addicts Baby. You've been listening to the Animation Addicts Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you want to help spread the word, be sure to share the podcast with your friends on social media. Just don't forget to tag us at Rotoscopers on Instagram and use the hashtag Animation Addicts. For all the links and full show notes for this episode, go to rotoscopers.com/podcast. Now, if you still can't get enough for your animation fix, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and visit rotoscopers.com for more animation news, reviews, and interviews. Thanks for listening.